Hello there, how are you doing? In this video, we're basically going to be looking at leases, and then I will also be able to take you through how leaseholds are actually created. We'll also be sharing together the acquisition of leasehold tenure by non-Ugandan citizens, and then we'll also be looking at the types of leases and also leases on public land. Hello there, my name is Mutiawa Conrad. I'm a lawyer and a private law tutor. And before we start on our class, I encourage you to subscribe to my channel. This will really help you so that every time I release videos, this is brought to your attention. Also, turn on the notification so that this is always brought to your attention. Students interested in private law tutorial sessions, please feel free to reach out to the experts who will be able to help you. We'll organize these private legal engagements, in your office or at school or anywhere, and will really help you to improve your grades. And students who have continued to be on our private law tutorial programs have continuously been proven to outperform their colleagues who do not have any sort of mentorship or help. So let's jump right into what we're going to be looking at today, and those are leases. Just like I shared briefly, we're going to look at the meaning or definition of a lease. We'll also be looking at the types of leases. We'll look at how actually leases are created, and then we'll look at leases on public land. And finally, we'll also look at the acquisition of leasehold tenure system of land ownership by non-Ugandans in Uganda. So let's start by defining what actually a lease means. So every time we talk about a lease, what do we really mean? Of course, authority for the definition of a lease, please, I encourage you to look at Section 1S of the Land Act, Cap 227. It actually defines what a leasehold is, basically as the holding of land for a given period of time from a specified date of commencement on such terms and conditions as may be agreed upon by the lessor and the lessee. So basically, a lease, this is where two parties or more come to an agreement, where one party allows the other to use their land from a certain agreed date to a certain date when the lease comes to an end on such terms that actually the two have agreed about. It can be terms as to payment of a certain amount. Sometimes it may not even actually be on term of payment of an amount. So basically that is what a lease means, okay? So it's important to note really from the onset that when someone gives you a lease on their land, it doesn't mean that they have given you their land to actually take it and then it becomes yours. Not really. Actually, land ownership stays with the person who has given you the land, but subject to those terms. You only get ownership or the right to use that land within the terms that you have agreed about and within that stipulated term or period. So basically that's what a lease is about. Also important to note is that the leasehold land tenure ownership system is actually ingrained and constitutionalized under the 1995 Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, and it's provided for under Article 237, Clause 3, and also actually Section 2D of the Land Act, Cap 227. These two authorities establish the leasehold tenure system. Let's now look at how leaseholds are actually created. How is this leasehold land tenure system created? It's important to note, ladies and gentlemen, that it can be created in any one of the following two ways. One, by contract, meaning that parties can have an agreement and they contract where someone who has their private land gives a lease to another. Okay, but it's also important to note that actually leasehold can also be created by operation of law. Now here what we mean is that there can be a certain law that actually creates a leasehold in a certain piece of land. So either by creation of law or by agreement. Okay, those are the two ways. Okay, we'll of course shortly be looking at examples where leases were created by laws. For example, when you look at the 1975 Land Reform Decree and so on, that turned certain pieces of land into leases. So an operation of law by way of either decree or by way of an act of parliament which has been passed can actually turn land into a leasehold tenure. So let's briefly proceed to look at the acquisition of leasehold tenure by non-Ugandans. So is it really possible for a non-Ugandan to own land in Uganda? The answer is yes. But however, it's important to also note that a non-Ugandan cannot own, for example, private Milo or Milo land or freehold land, but the only under the it's only the under the leasehold tenure system that actually non-Ugandan can own land. So for Milo land, for freehold land, a non-Ugandan cannot own that type of land, but they can own land under the leasehold. And this is actually constitutional. The Constitution provides for it. Again, I encourage you to go and look at Article 237, Clause 2C of the Constitution, and also Section 40, subsection 1 of the Land Act, Cap 227. Both those two authorities are authoritative, and they provide that a non-citizen may acquire leasehold. So they only allow a non-citizen to hold leasehold land. And also of interest to you, or what is also important to note, is that a lease of 5 years or more acquired by a non-citizen must be registered. And this is actually a requirement and position of the law under Section 40, subsection 2 of the Land Act, Cap 227. So the moment a non-Ugandan gets a lease of above 5 years, it has to be registered. This is a requirement of the law, and if it's not registered, of course, that would amount to an illegality. Then also, it's also important to note that these non-citizens that actually acquire leasehold tenure, they can't be granted a lease that exceeds 99 years. So the ceiling of a lease grant is 99 years. And again, this is a requirement of the law. I invite you to look at Section 40, subsection 3 of the Land Act, Cap 227. Then also, when you look under Section 40, subsection 5 of the Land Act, Cap 227, it actually provides that those people who owned leases by virtue of the 1975 Land Decree, okay, from the time the 1995 Constitution came into existence, those leases they held as of 1st June 1975, from that day we start to count that they actually hold leases for another 99 years. That's very important really to note. I invite you to kindly go and look at Section 40, subsection 5. Let's now proceed to look at the types of leases. So it's important to note that leases have types, and there are mainly two types. The first is called a fixed lease, and the second is called a periodic term lease. We're going to look at the definitions of these so that you're able to appreciate them very well. So let's start by looking at a fixed term lease. Basically, a fixed term lease is one whose duration is fixed by the parties at the onset, so that once the term expires, the lease comes to an end. Okay, so there is already, the time is fixed from the word go. The moment that time comes to an end, it expires, the lease also comes to an end. That is what we mean when we talk about a fixed lease, okay, or a fixed term lease. Like the way you really hear the word, the term of the lease is fixed. If that term comes to an end, the lease also comes to an end. Let's now proceed to look at a periodic term lease, okay, a periodic term lease. So a periodic term lease is one which continuously renews. So it continues to renew, okay, from one term to another until terminated by a proper notice served by either party, okay, and that was clearly defined in the case of Prudential Assurance Company Limited versus London Residuary. It's a case of 1992, volume 3, All England Law Reports. So basically that is a periodic term lease. It continues to renew, okay, from one term to another. So meaning that if you have a term of 30 years, if 30 years pass, it renews to another 30 years until one of the parties through a proper notice terminates it, and that notice must be served on the other party. So basically those are the two types of leases. Let's now proceed to look at leases on public land. Now it's important to note that whereas a lease can be granted on private land, okay, you may own your piece of plot and you may give a lease on that piece of plot, okay, but it's also important to note that there are leases on public land. Public land, this is basically land that is owned by government or any organ of government. Now, leases on public land are granted through what we call the district land board. So there are district land boards. If you want a lease on public land, a type of lease is granted by those district land boards. Now, the position of the law under Section 59, subsection 1A of the Land Act, Cap 227, it actually provides that district land boards are mandated to hold and allocate land which is not owned by any person or authority. So these district land boards have the power. In case there is any land around your community and there is evidence to show that it's not owned by any person, okay, it is ownerless, okay, that is if any such land exists, these district land boards actually have the authority to get that land, hold it, and also allocate it to any person who so desires to wish it. But also under Section 59, subsection 1A of that same Land Act, under the amendment, an allocation or holding of land by the district land board owned by a person or authority is void. And actually this position was cemented, okay, in the case of KDLD versus National Housing Authority. It's a Supreme Court decision. This is number 2 of 2004. So the moment this district land board holds land, okay, and allocates it, and yet that land is actually owned by someone, such an allocation and holding, according to the law, would be void. Please go and look at that case which I shared with you. That is Kampala District Land Board versus National Housing. It's a Supreme Court decision number 2 of 2004. So basically that's what we had to look at today. So just a recap, we looked at the definition and meaning of a lease. We looked at how leaseholds are created. We have also looked at ownership of leaseholds by non-Ugandans and the position of the law on the same. We looked at the various types of leases, and also we looked at the position of the law on leases on public land. That was all for our class today. Thank you very much. Once again, my name is Mutiaba Conrad. Please feel free to reach out to us for private law tutorial sessions. We'll be able to help you. Contact us. Our numbers are down in the description box. Thank you very much. We'll meet in another class. Bye-bye.